In 2021, Apple gave me the Apple Design Award for innovation for this app.
People are not aware that such an app exists.
It's an art and a science, and it's almost like black magic. NaadSadhana had passed the musical Turing test, and from a judge no less than Panditji himself, A.R. Rahman shared my video on his Instagram.
Today's innovation will become tomorrow's tradition.
So these improvisations are all spontaneous. So if I do a jugalbandi,
Mama gama parani dani parani da 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 varare sarani ni sada vani dani parani da.
This sounds like it's a magic app. It's a all-in-one.
and then my first instrument was a swaramandal. And I realized that the magic of the tanpura is not just sampling the strings, but it is the interaction of these strings as they speak to each other.
Sandeep, any tips for people who want to develop their ideas?
You should never go to pain with the voice and avoid strain as much as possible. If you are steadily always in your comfort zone and make life too comfortable, you will not grow, you will stagnate. ये करेंगे वो भी करेंगे. I will do this and I will do that as well.
It's often said that creativity and loneliness or being alone go hand in hand.
I had an insane idea that I will finish my masters in 2 semesters instead of 2 years. People told me that I'm an idiot, I will fail at both of these things. From that point in time, I decided to name this workout Nadi Yog because it was inspired by yoga and it was for the voice.
Have you ever wondered if art and technology have a meeting point? We are honored to welcome on the Creativity Dialogues Sandeep Ranade, who has this unique distinction of being a Hindustani classical vocalist and also a master's in computer science from the prestigious Johns Hopkins University in the US. So Sandeep, you go with the title of Geek Gayak. How did this happen?
So I've been learning music from very young age, about 4.5. And I was also enamored by problem solving and programming early on as well. So after my 12th grade, I decided to do the unthinkable, which was to have 2 full-time careers. And this was the point when my geek and my gayak sort of started coming together. And later on, they found their own unique identity as Geek Gayak because I was able to create an app that combines technology and music. Even as a composer, I tend to bring in my geek side and my Gayak side together. And so my compositions are based on events in my own life and some contemporary ideas as well.
So Sandeep, let's begin with maybe a small presentation of where the geek and the Gayak come together.
So the first time that this happened was when I was in California. I was newly married, about a year into my marriage, and my mother-in-law had come to visit us, and she had cooked a lovely dinner, and she asked my wife Meghana to call me for dinner. Now Meghana is also an engineer, and so she sent me a message on Google Talk. This was 2009. On Google Talk saying dinner's ready, come for dinner. I was in the bedroom working from home, so I replied back 2 minutes. And her mom saw this exchange of messages across a wall and she went ballistic. She said, leave all of this mobile communication at work and you should talk to each other face to face. We of course did that, but this was a convenience that our generation will appreciate. But that was a very interesting incident and I thought maybe a song can be created from this. And this is the first song that I have that has English words in it and very new age concepts, and perhaps probably the first Hindustani classical composition that I know of with English words. But it is still a very traditional classical Chandrakaus composition. The lyrics are Dina Rena Sajana Karata Chintana. Dina Rena Sajana Karata Chintana. Screen Dekhana me Nadarang Magana. Nadarang is my composer name. स्क्रीन देखन में नाद रंग मगन मनन करत बीते जीवन दिन रैन साजन करत चिंतन जब देखूं तो देखत है फोन जब देखूं तो देखत है फोन नील दंत लगाए कानन नीलदंत is Bluetooth. नीलदंत लगाए कानन, ईमेल बिन तरपन उलझन, तंत्र ज्ञान कठिन सौतन, दिन रैन साजन करत चिंतन. So from the very old traditional Sasnanan concepts, I have transformed that into today's Southern concept, which is technology, which is the cruel mistress these days.
Yes. So this, I think, will be interesting for people to know that in Hindustani classical music, we've been handed down bandishes from generations, and they have certain traditional concepts that nobody has dared to change so far. But you have taken that onus to make this more relevant for our times, and so kudos to you for doing that. Why don't you sing this for us?
Certainly.
दिन जन साजन करत चिंतन दिन जन साजन करत चिंतन स्क्रीन देखन में नाद रंग मगन मनन करत बीते जीवन दिन जन साजन करत चिंतन जब देखूं तो देखत है फोन नील दंत लगाए कानन ईमेल बिन तरपन उलझन ईमेल बिन तरपन उलझन तंत्र ज्ञान कठिन सौतन दिन रन साजन करत चिंतन दिन रन.
Beautiful and so innovative. So, Sandeep, you have created this unique app, which is like an aid, a tool for students of music, professionals of music to help with their practice. Could you explain to us exactly how this app happened and how you created it, the process of creating it?
It all started in 2017. And at that time, I'd been teaching for nearly 20 years, Hindustani classical music. And there was a student of music who came to me for help. And she had learned music from other people for at least 8-9 years before. And she was frustrated with her lack of progress. So we said, we started. And immediately it became clear that she had major problems in her notes, the ability to recognize notes in the octave. So she had no recognition for multiple notes in the 12-note octave. This was very weird because I had never seen anything like this before. So I started thinking, what could be the problem? So first thing, I had her go to a doctor and get tested for tone deafness, which is the inability of distinguishing between two frequencies. But she was not tone deaf. So then I realized that this is not a hardware problem, it's a software problem. So her neural pathways, her habits basically were so poorly created that it was impossible for her to recognize these notes. If you go back 100 years to the Gurukul style of education, the student will go live with the guru for many years and then learn the craft. Any mistake that the student makes is immediately corrected by the guru. So in a very few short weeks, the habits that the student gets into are correct, are very precise, and are lifelong. But today what is happening is students are learning perhaps an hour, couple of hours a week.
You don't get the continuous attention or company of the guru.
And it's worse than that. It's not just the lack of time with the guru. It is also that they go off and practice by themselves for several days a week without any guidance. So if they make any mistakes, or even if it is slightly off, and they repeat that,
There's no support.
then they get into wrong habits, and it is always about 10 times more difficult to unlearn than to learn something new.
Yeah.
So then we are never going to converge in this case. So if a student gets into bad habits and constantly reinforces those bad habits, there is no way that I as a teacher can actually help them with 1 or 2 hours a week. So how do I fix this now was the question in my mind. I cannot possibly have my students come live with me.
Yeah.
I have my own life, family. I cannot possibly give them guidance whenever they sing, because there could be any time zone all over the world. So I thought, hey, it's 2017, maybe there is an app for this. So I looked at the app store, and unfortunately there was no such app.
Because this is very difficult to create.
Yes.
To be able to create a system like this is a huge challenge.
I didn't realize how difficult it would be till I decided to build one myself. And it was all new learning for me. This was my very first app that I'd created. I'd done other things before in my software world, but app development, mobile development was completely new to me. Also, digital signal processing was something that I had to do a deep dive in, and also human pitch analysis, which I realized was a very difficult problem to solve. And it took me 9 different solutions to finally come to a point where the tuner that I had created was fast, was accurate, was precise, was robust to noisy environments, and also was battery efficient. But finally, I had a solution and I sent her a little beta version of the app to try out. And it was stunning. She improved from a terribly low score of 5%. And in 2 weeks, she came to 80%. And she stayed above 80% after that.
That's huge.
I didn't expect this because you don't expect to see such a large progress. I thought she would improve slowly over a few months, which is what you would expect. But 2 weeks, because she was doing it consistently, and every time she sang, the app was able to guide her into the right habits. And she stayed above 80% after that, which meant that the app had successfully rewired her brain. And this is how NaadSadhana was born. I named it NaadSadhana because Naad is the essence of music, of sound.
Yeah.
And sadhana is systematic, endless, dedicated practice.
This can be a companion for any student practitioner of music, in which you actually have a variety of different instruments. So even if somebody isn't struggling with pitch, this is a complete support system.
Yes, so the instruments came a little bit later because as a Hindustani classical vocalist, I perform live and I have my fellow musicians with me, and together we improvise on the spot. We create music creatively on the spot in real time. And this is magical because that musical dialogue, that give and take, that rising of that energy is so phenomenal. The problem is that when I practice at home, I am usually by myself. So the question is, how can I recreate that same level of musical dialogue
Correct.
that I experience on stage at home? Because if I practice with that level of dialogue, then my stage experience will go further, which is what every artist should strive for.
Correct.
Now I have an app that understands pitch. Now I wanted it to do more. I didn't know if it was possible, but I was very ambitious in my thought process at least. So I decided that I want my app to understand song structure, emotions, rhythm, melody, harmony, and then create and play beautiful music instantaneously in real time in response to my music or anybody else's music.
That's quite amazing that it actually responds to what you sing.
Yes.
That's quite an achievement.
I didn't know if it was even possible because I'd never done anything related to artificial intelligence or machine learning or neural networks before. And when I looked into the problem, I realized that there is no existing solution, no model, no technique that I can actually use directly. So I had to invent a large amount of new ideas and techniques. And so I decided to call this artistic intelligence because it is not the normal AI techniques.
Yes.
It's a new
It's a new-
genre itself.
Correct.
And then my first instrument was a swaramandal.
Which is traditionally used in Hindustani classical. Yeah.
Difficult to tune, takes time to tune
Yes.
correctly.
Yes.
And people have low patience these days to sit and wait for me to tune for every new rag that I sing.
Yes.
It was also a pain to carry and travel with it because airlines being what they are these days,
Yes.
it gets logistically more and more difficult to not break that instrument through transit. So I thought if I had a Swaramandal in my phone, in my pocket, then it would be wonderful. But I wanted it to not play something static, something set or preset. I wanted it to understand my music and then respond in creative ways in the same way that I would, or even better, somebody like Pandit Jasraj ji, who was an incredible Swaramandal player as well, vocalist, tabla player, but also Swaramandal he would play so beautifully. Or Kishori Dayamonkar, phenomenal artists, but also they would not just use it for accompaniment. It was like almost like a solo instrument.
Yes. Yes.
So that was my bar. I didn't know if it was possible, but I started looking at it, and slowly I started to see results where the Swaramandal was accompanying me. Then I added tanpuras. I wanted the most realistic tanpuras, and
Which
I
is the
realized
drone.
the string, the plucked drone. And I realized that the magic of the tanpura is not just sampling the strings, but it is the interaction of these strings as they speak to each other through shared resonances and consonances. That the Swayambhu Gandhar concepts or the rag based shrutis, all of these start showing up in the tanpura for masters of this art. And it is very difficult to do this manually on a tanpura. But if I had something that would automatically do this, then my sense of swar will also improve exponentially, so that I can then tune a real tanpura every single time with that accuracy.
Yes.
So then that involved a lot of advanced math that I didn't realize I would ever need after my engineering days. So partial differential equations and the lot. So it was a lot of fun. Nobody knows about this as such because it's not an advertised feature of the app.
Yeah, I think this is the thing that people are not aware that such an app exists, in which in one place you get your rhythm, you get the melodic support you need, and you get everything in real time, which gives you the whole a kind of performance experience just when you're practicing.
And then I decided to do the tabla because the rhythm section was something that was so critical to that live experience.
So you first had the music sorted out, and then you came to the rhythm, the tabla.
I got the bass, sort of the drones and the swaramandal, and then because I also had to gain some experience in this field that I did not have, and tabla was something I'd never learned to play tabla. As a vocalist, you understand tabla sufficiently to sing with it, but playing it is a completely different ballgame. It's a very complex instrument. There is such a large variety of sounds that it can create. Such a capable instrument. Also, a lot of rules of accompaniment. So I started to learn tabla, not to play it, but to understand how it is played. And it took me a long time. It took me a few years to get to a point where the app was actually starting to play the tabla. And in fact, it grew as a human would grow. So initially, as its content was not that sufficiently intricate, it would play fine. As it started to gain a lot more knowledge of solo phrases and tukdas and uthans and all of that, it started to show off by itself. And so I realized now I have to teach it what to play, and when not to play. And so appropriateness was a new AI that I had to invent. Let me show you a demonstration of how the app responds to my music and plays all of these instruments.
Please.
And I've also added harmony and percussion instruments after that. So now the app has 27 world instruments. Now as I start singing, it will start playing.
Sadhana Ayor Ayor Ayor.
Now let us start the tabla.
Alabela sajan ayori Alabela sajan ayo.
So these improvisations are all spontaneous. So if I do a jugalbandi,
Mama gama barani da 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 barare sarani ni sada bani dani badani da da mama maga ni alabela sajan ayo sajan ayo sajan ayo sajan ayo.
This is such an amazing app, and it's so empowering for the student, for the musician, to just be by themselves and yet have an experience of a full accompaniment. Also, have to mention that Apple gave you a special award for this. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
in 2021, Apple gave me the Apple Design Award for innovation for this app. And this was truly mind-blowing because I'm only the second Indian to ever win this award in the long history of this award. It is one of the highest awards that you can get for design and innovation in the computer science world. And for the first time ever, this was given to an app about Indian music and culture. And so the fact that Apple recognized a solo developer's hobby app in a very niche area at that point in time. Now it has gone to more genres and world music, but that was truly something else. Because as an Indian, as a musician, and as a developer, this was truly,
Yeah,
it meant
such
the
a
world to me.
beautiful coming together of all your talents to create something which was based off of that. From here, I think it would be very nice to hear the song during the pandemic that went viral. So, even perhaps people who may not regularly be that much into classical music, they too enjoyed your version of, Corona. Rather than version, I would say your expression of the Corona song.
Certainly. So, yes, as a musician, I tend to approach emotional wounds through music as well to heal them. And of course, March of 2020 was such a depressing, helpless, dark, uncertain time. And I decided to create a song, Na Karo Na Karo, Na Karo Na Karo, Na Karo Na Karo, to spread some optimism that we will survive the pandemic and perhaps also some tips to survive the pandemic. And this is how the song was born. Now, this was a traditional classical melody in Rag Basant, but it had a twist. It had geeky puns and humor, it had an English word, and of course, it was all about a virus. And I recorded the song. The app accompanied me. It had 10 instruments at that point in time, and I was not 100% sure how people would react to this because it was such a interesting overall time. Why would I want to send a song to people when there's a pandemic? But I thought that maybe people do need a little bit of optimism that we will survive, and so I sent it out to a very few close friends on WhatsApp. And 15 minutes later, my world changed because I got a call from my Guruji, late Padma Vibhushan Sangeet Martan Pandit Jasraj. And he said, कम से कम 300 लोगों ने गाना तुम्हारा मुझे भेजा है. 300 people have sent me your song. And I had not sent it to him yet. And this was stunning. And then he said, Basant mein bahar lai,
क्या बात
because it was in Rag Basant. And then he asked me, तबला बहुत बढ़िया बजा है, किसने बजाया? Tabla was played wonderfully. Who played the tabla with you? NaadSadhana had passed the musical Turing test. And from a judge no less than Panditji himself. I was speechless, I was in tears. And as if this was not blessing enough, a few minutes later, A.R. Rahman shared my video on his Instagram. This was so overwhelming that I remember losing all sensation in my body at this point. So I'll sing the song for you.
Yes, please, we have to hear that.
ना करो सुनो मोरी बात ना करो सुनो मोरी बात ना करो सुनो मोरी बात न मिलाओ हाथ हम जोड़त हाथ न मिलाओ हाथ हम जोड़त हाथ न लगाओ मुख सो मैले हाथ ना करो मग ग मग मर मर निर सारे नि सा ध निर कर मग रे सारे नि धनि मर सा नि धम मग रे सा नि धम मग रे सा नि धम मग रे सा नि रे ग म धनि सा ना करो सुनो मोरी बात मत डरो घर रहो कुछ दिन रात मत डरो धीर धरो कुछ दिन रात कोरोना पे मिल करेंगे मात कोरोना पे मिल करेंगे मात जग कर निरोगी दीनानाथ ना करो सुनो मोरी बात ना करो सुनो मोरी बात.
Thank you for singing for us and also for showing your amazing tayari or preparation. It sounds like you're probably practicing all day. Would that be true?
I'm supposed to practice all day. Traditionally, I think to become a good singer, the recommended dosage was 10 hours per day. But because I had these two careers in mind, very quickly I realized after my 12th grade that apart from the reactions that people gave me with my ambition to do two full time careers, my biggest challenge was time management. And I couldn't possibly spend 10 hours a day because 10 hours a day doing practice for my vocals and 10 hours a day studying for my academics. Not possible. I tried as much as I could, but very quickly I realized that I would basically not survive this. This is not sustainable. So I was looking for ways to figure out if it's possible to shrink down a little bit, maybe by a factor of two. So if I can do 5 hours of vocal practice and 5 hours of academics, that would help me survive my engineering days. And there was one idea that I started to look at which really inspired me to be smart about being lazy. This was two sorting algorithms called bubble sort and quick sort. They do exactly the same task. The output is the same. They sort data. One of them is much faster than the other. So on a modern computer, to sort a million numbers, bubble sort will take a little bit over 80 minutes, 80. Quick sort, 1/10 of a second. On that particular data set, it was about 50,000 times faster. All I needed was a factor of 2. So really inspired by this, I started finding smart cuts, not shortcuts, but smart cuts from fields like neuroscience, from learning theory, discrete mathematics, graph theory, software testing. And I was able to actually squeeze in 10 hours into 5 hours eventually. And this was a game changer because it allowed me to survive my engineering days. And I was also able to apply very similar optimizations to my studies and shrunk that time down to 5 hours as well. Of course, this was not sufficient after engineering because every new milestone in my life, my time basically evaporated very quickly.
Yeah.
So getting a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University, I was very ambitious because I wanted to save 1 year and also 1 year's fees because Hopkins charged by semester, not by credit. So I had an insane idea that I will finish my master's in 2 semesters instead of 2 years.
Oh,
And against my advisor's guidance, and he said, this is suicide, don't do this. And I said, I'll drop these courses a few courses, once I know which ones I like. It was too late to drop the courses. And so I still had to go. But at that point, I realized I was still doing 3 hours of practice. It was compressed down to 3 hours. And it is that vocal practice that actually kept me sane. It kept me sharp. It kept my grasp high. And I was actually able to do my master's in 2 semesters because of that. Then I joined Microsoft as my first job in the most veteran team, which is the Windows kernel team. So very smart people, very senior people. So again, my time shrunk. By that time, I was doing 2 hours of practice. Then I got married. By that time, luckily, I had gotten it to 1 hour, 10 hours down to 1 hour. And this was tight that I could do 1 hour every day. It was very intense vocal workout, like very intense. I was sweating after it and it was very tiring and all of that. But it was 1 hour. And so from that point in time, I decided to name this workout Nadi Yog because it was inspired by yoga and it was for the voice. And so think of Surya Namaskar, sun salutations. Very optimized exercise done in a shorter amount of time as opposed to all the asanas.
yeah,
So
which
this was
stretches
inspiring.
the complete body.
Exactly. And that's the idea. This is a complete vocal workout, exercising every possible vocal ability. And there was another insight a few months before the pandemic hit, in fact, which allowed me to squeeze in not perhaps 10 hours into 1 hour, but 8 hours into 15 minutes. And this was a breakthrough because it allows everybody now, hobbyists, bathroom singers, to practice 15 minutes a day is possible for everybody.
Yeah.
1 hour is a large commitment for many busy people. 15 minutes psychologically seems like a small slice of time. But if they do that every day, then now I'm seeing results where there are Grammy Award winning singers who also used the same 15-minute workout. and very early stage, very beginning students of music, and they all saw tremendous improvements in their voice. So that made me very happy.
So basically, people can get this app from you. How, if they wanted to practice this, are there any ways in which they could?
So I've made an online course.
You've created an online
it's,
course.
it's a web course, videos, and I've taught this. It's a very tight, short set of videos, and it'll take a couple of months to get comfortable with the exercises and concepts, and then you're on by yourself. You can
Nice.
practice. Then the app will help you practice by yourself and make sure that the pitch is right and you're getting all of the concepts correctly.
Nice. So, Sandeep, you've kind of walked us through the potential of the app, which is to facilitate practice, uh, doing everything solo. And then you've also shared with us the Nadi Yog possibility of actually very effective practice in very minimum time. This brings us to perhaps the next important aspect, which is does the app allow you to record? Are you able to have a recording experience as well?
So it's a very interesting question because when I recorded my Corona song, there was no recording facility directly in the app. And this was a problem because it took me nearly 2 hours to record a 2-minute song. Because the setup was quite complex, multiple devices, there's a phone, there's a MacBook Pro, there's a webcam from the MacBook, multiple software, wires, cables, connectors needed to set everything up. And then the final video needed to be merged with the audio and video from the webcam and the app. And I realized that I can be lazy again. And so I implemented an entire multi-track audio video recording studio right in the app. And to make things even faster, because to mix a lot of tracks takes a long time. It's an art and a science, and it's almost like black magic. And I'm not bad at mixing, but I thought that if I can automate the process, then I can first of all save a lot of time, and probably the app can do a better job than I can. And so I used my artistic intelligence ideas, and it now mixes everything automatically with 28 tracks.
Wow.
And so that means that I can go from recording to mixing to publishing instantly. So my time is saved, and if you multiply that with the number of content creators out there, they'll save a day per recording. And so that's hundreds of thousands of hours, perhaps millions of hours saved.
Yeah.
So that was a very useful feature for me to save a lot of time.
Yeah. This sounds like it's a magic app. It's a all-in-one and completely empowering to the individual to just work independent.
It is magic in the sense that artistic intelligence tends to surprise me and delight me. And there have been times when I have actually appreciated the app's accompaniment and say, aha, kya baat hai, or wah, because it is so surprising at times. And with artistic intelligence, you don't know sometimes why it works, and you also don't know why it doesn't work sometimes. So it's a very interesting technological frontier.
Yes, yes. So, Sandeep, it's been so wonderful getting introduced to your creations of all types. What would really intrigue me and interest me now is to how your process of constructing yourself happened. So, let's delve into some different aspects of how you've actually prepared yourself to take on this huge endeavor which you fulfilled. But let's start exploring what was your process of just, improving the self in order to make this self capable of all these creations. So, the first thing that comes to mind is how do you deal with perpetual discomfort? Because, in order to create all of this, the route or the path is never easy. It's must have been filled with innumerable challenges, perhaps daily challenges. So, how do you keep your mental, emotional state in a state of balance that you don't get disturbed? How do you, in simply put, how do you deal with perpetual discomfort?
I'm a big fan of the word sadhana because it expresses a concept that goes beyond just the word. It is a perpetual, endless evolution of sorts. And so it is not about the destination, it is the journey. and every day you try to better yourself in some way, small way, that's okay, but every day you focus on making yourself a little bit better, so that you keep growing and you keep compounding that over time. And so it is one day at a time, really. And it's a very simple thing to do in that sense. You don't have to worry about where I will reach, when I will reach, wherever I want to reach.
This is amazing what you've said, because it reminds me that there is this famous book, The War on Art by Stephen Pressfield. And in that, Stephen says that whenever we are really supposed to do something, we experience this strange resistance that don't do it now. And most people just put it off. In fact, the more meaningful that thing is, the more they feel the resistance and they won't do it. So he offers a solution to that, which is kind of what you said. He said that don't think like an amateur, think like a pro. An amateur says that no, I don't feel like doing it, I won't do it. But a pro says that no, this is necessary. So, which is like committing to sadhana, that no, I have to show up irrespective of what happens from it, but I have to show up, I have to do it. And I think that describes your process of dealing with this discomfort, this resistance which comes up.
And what I realize is it's not just resistance within yourself. Sometimes that is the case. Sometimes it is resistance externally.
Yes.
And it has been said many times before by many people that there is this comfort zone. If you are steadily always in your comfort zone and make life too comfortable, you will not grow, you will stagnate. If you are in a chaos, firefighting mode constantly, also you are now in survival mode,
Yeah,
fight
you
or
won't
flight.
so, yeah.
So there's no growth possible in that zone either. But there is a sweet spot just outside of your comfort zone, but not quite deep into that chaos zone where growth lies. And it's an irony because I consider myself to be very lazy. I enjoy my laziness. I enjoy naps. I enjoy sleeping. Yet, looking back, I have consistently pulled myself out of my comfort zone every single time that I had the opportunity. After my 12th, choosing two full-time careers was insane to a lot of people. I got a lot of pushback. People told me that I'm an idiot, I will fail at both of these things. But I was so passionate about both that I couldn't think of not doing them together. It felt like losing a part of my body if I choose one over the other.
And you were very authentic to respond to this feeling, because there are so many naysayers in the world who will try and say that, oh, don't you want to become the master at one? So you shouldn't do this, or do just one thing, because I'd faced something like that. And so I feel that it takes a lot of internal courage to not succumb to that, and to have two such different fields that require a lot from you, and to actually do them.
I realized that I've done this consistently, like doing my master's in 2 semesters was a very big challenge. And it was probably the hardest that I'd worked up until that point in time. Working 16, 18 hours a day for a startup that I was the first engineer at, or leaving a very comfortable, very luxurious life and job in the US and moving back to India. Both of us quit our jobs. She was at Apple, I was at Google, and we moved back to India. And then we became parents of twins in 2017, December. And that pulled us out of our comfort zone completely. Unbelievable, challenging situation. But 2 days after my twins were born, I started my first line of code on the app. So I had 3 babies at once, almost. I had my babies, my twins, and NaadSadhana. So then there was the Apple Design Award. And a few weeks after that, I threw away all of the code that I had done for 5 years by that time and decided to start from scratch, from the first line from scratch, because I wanted to take the app in a direction where it was not possible with the current code base.
Correct. And also, one thing that I noticed is that perhaps because you pushed yourself to actually work in both of these areas, I feel that in a way, because you got into technology, so your financial worries were taken care of by this. So here, what's interesting to note is you have either consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously, worked towards facilitating things, because you grew in this, but it's also a well-paying field. So it could take care what a lot of the other starving artists have to go through, that there is no source of income, and so many times that's a very big challenge.
After my 12th, I was very clear about one thing, which was I didn't want to depend on music as my primary source of income. Because I knew, I'd heard from a lot of people that it's such a risky field and you don't know when your next meal is going to come from. And very few artists will actually succeed to that extent. And so I decided that I will, because I have this other side, that will take care of my
Yeah.
financial needs, and then I can focus on music as a pure art form. I don't have to worry about compromising my musical ideals,
Correct.
because I'm sure there are situations where people will have to do that if it comes to that
Exactly. I mean, for most
starvation.
people, it is kind of that situation. So I think that this thought itself is empowering. That ultimately everybody's life is so unique that they have to find a path which works for them. There will always be some sort of a path which will emerge.
The path, unfortunately, I chose was the unbeaten path, and I got beaten for it quite a bit.
Yes. Yes.
And in fact, I realized that the pattern is so pervasive in our society that I decided to make a song for this, which I call the Rebels Mantra. And there are two parts of this song. There is the Naysayers Mantra, which is what you will hear when you start to do anything that is out of the ordinary. And these are probably well-intentioned people that don't want that they impose their own risk averseness on you to protect you in some way. But what is not realized in all of this is that this is a path that is your own path, and whatever risks, whatever success, failure is yours to learn from. And that was my core seed of this idea. So the naysayers mantra is ye mat kar wo mat kar, ye mat kar re मूर्ख, idiot, don't do this, don't do that. Why? पीड़ा होगी, भूल होगी. You will be in pain, you will make a mistake. सोना नहीं, धूल होगी. You'll not succeed, you'll not get gold out of it, you'll get dust out of it. हार है तुम्हारी. You will fail, you will be defeated. Don't do this, don't do that, you idiot. This is the naysayer's mantra. And then there is the rebel's mantra, which is the answer to the naysayer, which says, ये करेंगे वो भी करेंगे. I will do this and I will do that as well. भूल हुई तो सीख लेंगे. If I make a mistake, I will learn from it. गिर गए तो फिर उठेंगे. If I fall down, I will just get up again. But हार कभी ना मानेंगे. I will never accept defeat. And that is my victory. यही जीत हमारी. And so this was composed in Rag Basan Bahar.
हार है तुम्हारी, ये मत कर वो मत कर, ये मत कर मत कर मत कर, ये करेंगे वो भी करेंगे, ये करेंगे वो भी करेंगे, भूल हुई तो सीख लेंगे, भूल हुई तो सीख लेंगे, गिर गए तो फिर उठेंगे, गिर गए तो फिर उठेंगे, हार कभी ना मानेंगे, हार कभी ना मानेंगे, जीत है हमारी हमारी हमारी.
And it went viral as well, surprisingly. And this time it was actually, people said that they should be in curriculums for MBAs and even schools to teach this kind of an attitude, resilience and grit, that people can basically overcome any or transcend any situation, any difficulty that they encounter, and it will make for a much better next generation perhaps.
Yeah, and I think that, this is so important because classical music, which is considered like perhaps one of the highest musical forms in India for sure, perhaps even globally, I feel that somehow we've not made it accessible to the common person. The common man hasn't really gotten that access. And so I feel that these efforts and endeavors of yours are really a step in the right direction, that everybody can embrace it. It doesn't have to just be kept for the classical purists, and it can be a part of something that our youth, our young can enjoy. And just the way they derive their motivation, their inspiration, why not from classical music?
I absolutely agree. And content is something that should be evolving constantly, and we see that happening. But with classical music, because people were afraid to break out of the
I
traditional
think the
mold.
tradition thing is so big that somehow people have perhaps forgotten that even tradition, when it started, it was innovation. So, there was this beautiful saying by Pandit Ravi Shankar, where he said that today's innovation will become tomorrow's tradition.
Lovely.
And that's
Perfect.
really what it is.
Yes.
And so we need more people like you who will actually start innovating and not be afraid of just bringing such a fabulous form into current times and seeing what could be relevant and what could help it grow.
So, in fact, it is not even innovation in order to break tradition. It was never that intention of mine. I was just trying to express events and emotions in my life. I'm an average guy in the 21st century, and these were the things that came up. And in fact, I got some flack for introducing English words in traditional Hindustani classical compositions. But the thing is, the translation of those words was so unwieldy that if you say that word to a person, they will not understand it anyway. So, screen. In fact, let's not even go to screen or email. I asked them to pass the Durbhashik. This was a person who basically said, "Oh, you should not introduce all of these English words." And so I said, "Okay, noted." And later on during lunch, I said, "Can you please pass the Durbhashik?" And he said, "What? Durbhashik? Phone." And so then he understood my point. My point was that if the word is used in common jargon, then isn't it part of the language? Then am I introducing an English word, or is it just the language that
Yeah,
flows?
yeah.
In fact, a lot of English words were derived from Hindi and Sanskrit words like pajama,
Yeah.
right? A lot of, and they are now in the English
Yeah,
dictionaries.
or even for that matter, the way that we find words like yoga or spiritual or mantra. Mantra was also, um, uh, I mean, it's a purely Indian word, and yet it's used so commonly. Sandeep, any tips for people who want to develop their ideas or, prepare for something, whatever their topic or theme might be?
So after trying to optimize a lot of these things for vocals as well as for academics, I've realized that there are some common themes that people can use very quickly. One is that you find the building blocks for whatever hobby that you have, whether it is oil painting or watercolors or origami or karate or whatever it is. There are building blocks that can be practiced by themselves, and you master these building blocks first. And then you master putting these building blocks together in different ways. So in music, this will basically be smaller phrases that you practice really well, and then practice putting these smaller phrases together. Another thing that comes from neuroscience is how often do you repeat something to master it. And one of the first things that I realized was that typically people will waste a lot of time and energy doing things that are not effective. So let's say you want to practice a certain phrase or a certain thing that you want to repeat. If you repeat it for 100 times, you're effectively wasting a lot of effort, because after the first 5 or 10 times, the brain will basically say that I understand that this is important to you and I will optimize it when you next sleep. It cannot do anything before that, because to optimize it, it has to myelinate the neural pathways, which is basically putting this oily sheath on top of it that creates like from a road to an express highway. And so the signals travel much faster. And so this is how the brain optimizes neural pathways. But it has to wait till you sleep next. So after the 5 or 10th iteration, the brain is basically going to flatten out. It will say, this is diminishing returns from this point on. I know I'll wait till you sleep. I can't do anything else. So if you do 10 things in those 10, instead of 100 iterations, if you do 10 times 10 iterations, then you have actually done 10x more work, because the brain will optimize all of these tonight when you sleep. And then the next morning, you're already better at all of these things. And so in a few days or a few weeks, depending on what you're practicing, you will be better at 10 things as opposed to one thing at a time. So this is already a 10x improvement in any skill that you want, whether it is academics, studies, reading, memorization, or anything else.
Also, Sandeep, can you share with us some tips and guidance on well-being, on how you take care of yourself? If in regards to vocal practice, what are the things that you follow?
So vocal health is a topic that is very close to my heart, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of personal opinions that can actually be damaging at times. You have to realize that the voice is such a delicate instrument that if you fatigue it over and over and over again, at some point it will cause damage. And this is irreversible damage. You cannot go back to where you started from once you have damaged this. If you injure a muscle or overextend some bicep or tricep or even break a bone, it will heal over time and it will nearly come back to where it was before, most of the times. With the voice, it is not the case. Vocal folds, if they incur scar tissue, you are permanently damaging the quality of the voice. It will never be as mellifluous as it was before the damage was incurred. So this means that you should never go to pain with the voice and avoid strain as much as possible. And so how do you do that? So I have 10 tips around how to do this. The first tip is to sing in the right pitch. So let's say this is your vocal range and this is your comfort zone. This is where your voice will sound the healthiest, will be the most relaxed. And as you start getting out of this, there is more and more and more strain towards both ends of that spectrum. So if your vocal range is here and your comfort zone is here and you start singing a song here or here, you are going to at some point notice these effects of strain and fatigue. And there are extreme examples where singing a song very high, imitating some very famous singers perhaps, people have damaged their voices because they were not meant for that range. So speaking and singing in your own range is so critical and so important that in fact the app now has a tool to find your optimal vocal pitch. It will give you a sort of a zone of where you might be. The second tip is sing in your correct volume, because once again, the vocal folds are not meant to generate volume. The volume comes from resonating. And if you take an example of a tanpura, it has a stem and it has strings mounted on those and on that stem, and it has a resonating chamber. It has a large gourd, a tumba. That is where the sound will actually expand and sound louder and get amplified. If there is no tumba, if there is no resonating chamber and you pluck the string very hard, it will break the string. So instead of sounding louder, it will actually damage the string. Vocal folds are very similar. They're very delicate. They're creating pitch changes and that's their function. But volume comes from our three resonating chambers. There's a chest cavity, there's a soft palate, and there is the sinus cavities. And so low frequencies, mid frequencies, and high frequencies. And this is where the sound will expand and sound louder. So you don't have to put pressure on these vocal folds and scream, basically. That's what you're doing. When you shout or scream, you're not resonating. You're generating volume from here. And in fact, there are points when I have had students who came to me with their voices gone. And I said, what happened to you? And they said, oh, we were at a party and there was a lot of loud music and we were speaking above that volume for like an hour and they lost their voice. Think about it though. They didn't think twice about this. They said, hey, this is normal for us. If you play a sport for an hour and then you cannot move your hand at all for the next 2 days, would you not think twice about playing that sport again or doing what you did to damage that? But with the voice, we take it for granted. So this is very dangerous. And with repetitive stress injury, you will incur damage. So speaking and singing in the right volume, in a low volume, but resonating to make it appear richer and solid is, I think, the key. And in fact, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is outright shouting and screaming and one is the lowest volume that you can produce under which there is no sound possible. I would urge you to be on a scale of say 3 to 5 at all times and not go beyond that. There are microphones, there are speakers, amplifiers, use that. The third tip is to avoid the 3 big vocal killers. This is acid reflux, shouting, and smoking. And if you avoid these 3 things, and of these things, the shouting and smoking is obvious, but acid reflux is one of the most silent killers of the voice, and you might not even notice it. And so symptoms include waking up and having a very rough voice, dry mouth, and then over time as you drink.
Burning sensation.
Absolutely. But burning sensation is not there for everybody. So it could be silent reflux where there's no heartburn. If there is heartburn, it's obviously acid reflux. And the problem is that this acid gums up. There's a sphincter here that protects the esophagus and the lining of the vocal folds from that acid. But sometimes that is defective. And so antacids is not the right solution. This is a hardware fix, but that's a whole other discussion. But if that acid comes up, it can not only hurt this lining here and inflame the tissue around the vocal folds. If it is so inflamed that the vocal folds cannot vibrate, then you've basically lost your voice at that point. But it also creates this evaporation of this acid up into the sinus cavities. And that creates this horrible post-nasal drip and perhaps sinus infections, other vocal infections, strep throat, and so on. So a lot of times acidity sets up this chronic cycle of sore throat. And that basically, for a vocalist, for a speaker, that's basically a killer. So if you have these symptoms, if you think acidity is the problem, then I urge the audience to go to a doctor and seek out help for that, because it will immediately help their vocals. My fourth tip is to speak or sing with meend. Meend means continuity. In Western music, it is called glissando, which is gliding from one note to the other or one frequency to the other. I realized when I was teaching that I was speaking for 20-30 minutes and my voice was getting far more tired than if it would after 5 hours of singing. So I realized I'm speaking in a different way than I'm singing. And so I recorded myself and tried to figure out what that difference was. And I realized that the difference was that I was speaking in a staccato. So I would speak like that, as sharp impulses. And this would be very damaging or fatiguing rather to my voice. And so after 20 minutes, I was tired. The only fix I made to this was to start speaking in meend, was to speak in a continuous tone. And that not only was less energy expenditure, it was also very relaxing and it also sounds better. So that is the one fix that I made. And I realized that meend as a building block of music underlies everything you do, whether it is a alap or a taan or even the fastest taans. There is an underlying layer of meend, and people don't realize this. This is not apparent, because if you sing a taan, the first thing you see is that clarity, that dana as it is called. But underlying that dana, if there is meend, then the taan will not only sound far better and far more melodious, but it will also take far less energy and it will keep your voice healthy. So for example, if you sing a taan, this is a staccato taan. It is only dana. There is no meend. If I only sing meend,
Doesn't have the power of.
Yet. It doesn't have the power yet. But it already sounds better. And the funny thing is that even with meend, you can hear every note. Sa re ga ma ba ma ga ma da ba ma ga re ga ma ba ma ga re sa. It's a very clear taan. So that clarity, how is that possible in meend? Is somebody should think about this and ask this question. Why is when you're singing continuously, I can still hear the demarcation of notes, and if I sing like if I change the frequency linearly, this sounds non-musical. This is computer generated. This is not correct. The reason is that the meend is a non-linear function, and I'm waiting for milliseconds longer on those notes, but the brain is so amazing that it can pick up that little bit of weight and convert it into a clear interpretation of that sound, of that melody in the processes. So this was a fantastic thing because that means that I can cover 80-90% of that clarity with just mead, which is the most relaxing form. And then I add a little bit of volume modulation on top and it becomes a powerful tan like this. Same amount of energy. So this was a very big insight, and I urge people to really think about how they are singing in mead. My fifth tip is to breathe correctly. And breathing is so critical for voice production, for sound production. If you breathe very shallow, just up here, the lungs are sort of tapered, and the top part of the lung is actually much less volume. So if you're breathing it's called clavicular breathing. It's very shallow breathing. When you panic, you're not getting enough air in. And so this is suboptimal because then you cannot sustain a note for long and you have to keep breathing like that. It also creates more stress in the body, but that's a separate discussion. So when you deep breathe and you want to fill the bottom of the lungs, people would think belly breathing would be the right way to do this for singing. Belly breathing is great for yoga and pranayam and meditation and mindfulness. But when it comes to singing especially, what happens is if your stomach goes out and moves quite a bit, then you're changing this dynamic, this posture. So what I realized is there is a better way of breathing, and I call it back breathing, because you're actually breathing into the back of the lungs. So if you place your hands just above your kidneys, you'll feel that you can actually expand them out through breathing. And if you can practice that, then you're breathing straight into the largest part of the lungs, which is the bottom and the back of the lungs. Because in the front, there is the heart and the intestines and the spleen and all of these organs. So back of the lungs, actually, you can directly expand. And the stomach doesn't move too much, but the back is moving out. You're above the waist. Those muscles, those intercostal rib muscles are moving out. And this creates that expansion of the lungs without creating movement. And so you can draw in a lot of breath and hold it for a longer time as well. The other thing critical for breathing is, of course, posture. If you sit upright, then breathing becomes easier. My sixth tip is hydrating properly. So drink enough water and notice that it'll take about an hour and a half, 2 hours from when you drink the water in a very dehydrated state for it to actually reach the vocal folds and hydrate those tissues. So if you have a concert or a recording or some event coming up, make sure that you have drunk sufficient water a couple of hours before and then keep sipping after that. My seventh tip is to rest well, because a well-rested voice is a healthier voice. And so getting proper sleep, and there is a whole bunch of videos on this online, how to optimize your sleep. There is enough rest is such an important thing vocally also. If you're speaking for long hours, then taking a break where you are completely quiet is a very useful way to rest and rejuvenate the voice before your next meeting, for example. My eighth tip is to cleanse properly. So the simplest way to cleanse is to gargle. But Jal Neti is also something that I personally do, and it really helps a lot. So making sure that your nasal passages and your
So Jal Neti is where you pour water from one nostril.
I actually do a simpler version of it. I don't have a neti pot. What I do is I fill up a glass of water nearly to the top and then just tip it inside. So I just sort of like a straw, I breathe it in a little bit. So it doesn't go all the way.
So you don't take it out of the other nostril?
It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Because if it goes up one nostril and comes down the same nostril, that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's a very fast way of cleansing those sinus cavities and nasal passages. My ninth tip is to listen to your body. So at any point, if your body starts sending you signals of fatigue, of pain in the throat area, stop doing what you're doing. If you're singing or speaking and you experience pain, stop immediately. It's not worth it. Listen to your body. Your body will tell you what is happening and what should be done, what feels natural. Do that. And my 10th tip, probably the most important tip, is to be yourself. Sing in your own pitch, sing in your own volume. Some people have naturally louder volume. Some people have naturally soft voices. Follow that. Follow your anatomy. Don't go beyond your natural vocal range. There are ways to extend it safely, but it takes many years. So do it safely and slowly, but stay within your range and you have a unique voice. Everyone has their own unique voice. Keep to that. Keep to your own style. Do what suits you personally, what you like personally. Don't blindly imitate people because it's them, it's not you. And only if it suits you, then you don't imitate, but you interpret. You understand what they're trying to do, you enjoy it, then you bring it into your own style through conscious effort, and you understand why you're doing it and the intention behind it. And I think that is a far more healthy, mentally as well as physically, healthy way of going around it.
Thank you so much. I think these are extremely valuable tips because they show how we are able to fully take responsibility for ourselves, for our body, for the outputs. I was wondering, it's often said that creativity and loneliness or being alone go hand in hand. What are your thoughts on this?
That's a very interesting sentence because it depends heavily on how you define loneliness. So for me, loneliness is possible even when you're in a crowd. So that loneliness is you being comfortable sitting by yourself, sitting with your thoughts. That is loneliness in my definition. So it's not about not having attention or not having people around. It is how comfortable you are with your own thought process. How can you be comfortable sitting with those thoughts for a long time without the need for distractions, without the need for external stimulation? And in that case, you're right, the loneliness, sitting with your own thoughts, will give rise to creativity no matter what. And in fact, I have over 100 compositions, songs that I've created over the last 25 years, all of which there was some stimulus that created these songs. And I realized that these stimuli are all over the place. So typical stimuli will include things like pain and frustration and depression or anger or some difficulty. And there are a lot of these compositions. For example, I have a composition on when I was waiting for a security shuttle. When I was at Hopkins, it was the middle of the night, it was November, very cold. And I was waiting desperately for this security shuttle to take me from my college campus to my apartment.
जियरा तरसे अखियाँ बरसे मोर बालमा कब आवे मोर बालमा कब आवे उन बिन जियरा तरसे अखियाँ बरसे मोर बालमा बिना चैन नहीं आवे दरस बिना बाट देखते दिन गए बीत उन बिन जियरा तरे से अखियाँ बरसे मोर बालमा मनि ध प म ध प म ग रे ध नि ध नि रे ब रे ग म ध नि नि ध प म ग रे नि नि ध प म ध प म ग रे स ध आलमा कब आवे मोर बालमा मोर बालमा मोर बालमा कब
The longing that I experienced here was probably far severe, far more intense that I have ever experienced for a person. So the bandish is, the song is, More balama kab aave, un bina jiyara tarse akhiyan barase. So it's a virahatmak longing composition. It feels romantic, but it is actually set to a security shuttle. But it was that depth of that intensity of desperateness that I wanted this shuttle to show up soon. Another example of pain is when I had a terrible vertigo attack. And during this time, I woke up and my world was spinning around me. I couldn't figure out which way was up and which way was down.
Have you always suffered from vertigo?
This was the very first time, and so far it has been the only time, thankfully. But it
How
was
did you even know it was vertigo?
very good question. I have an uncle who's a surgeon, and he had this attack, and he he mentioned to me that it felt like I was dying, and I thought this is a rather dramatic way of saying this. But when I experienced my first vertigo attack, I realized exactly because that statement was so correct. I felt that I was dying. I didn't know what to make of it. I was panicking. I was breaking out in cold sweat.
This sounds scary. That
It is
can it
scary.
happen to anybody at any given, or is there a family history in this?
It can happen to anybody, and there are a lot of people who actually have this, but it's misdiagnosed also a lot of times, and there are sedatives given, but it's actually a hardware problem. There's a particular kind of vertigo where there are crystals inside the inner ear that basically tell you which way is up and which way is down because of gravity. But if these crystals escape, then they are going to send completely odd signals to the brain, and it will confuse the heck out of the brain.
So that makes you dizzy.
So that makes you dizzy because the brain is trying to reorient itself as to, okay, now this is up, now this is up, now this is up, and it gets confused in that. And interestingly, the doctor actually gave me a piece of advice that I thought was very generally very good advice. And so the composition was sort of public awareness that what are the symptoms of this problem and how do you get over it. The lyrics of the song are Ghoom ghoom jaga ghoome. The whole world is spinning around me. Na ghate, na mite, na chute. Kaun hu main, kyun hu main. Literally in the moment of that attack, I couldn't tell you my name. I couldn't tell you if I'm alive or not, who I am, why I am. And it was very scary. Doctor said, whenever you feel this happen again, you keep your eyes open. You don't close them. And you focus on one spot, fixed spot, say on a wall somewhere or on the horizon, and it will subside. So I thought this advice in general is a very spiritual advice. Because if you're in a difficult situation, if you keep your eyes open, if you keep your awareness high, and you focus on an anchor, which might be family, friends, meditation, spiritual, exercise, walking, whatever it keeps you anchored and centered, then that difficulty will subside by itself and you will get back balance. So, नयन खोल बिंदु साधे, संतुलन पावे, संकट जावे, लौट आया हूँ मैं, I am back. This is in the Rag Shuddha Sarang.
घूम 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 जग घूमे, 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 न घटे न मिटे न छूटे, कौन हूँ मैं, क्यों हूँ मैं, घूम 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 जग घूमे, नैन खोल बिंदु साधे, नैन खोल बिंदु साधे, संतुलन पावे, संकट जावे, लौट आया हूँ मैं, घूम 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 जग घूम, घूम 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 जग घूम.
So I thought this was one of those interesting events where there's a lot of pain, a lot of the difficult, terrifying situation. I think I'm like an oyster sometimes because if there is a grain of sand that is bothering me, I will coat it with a composition and it becomes a pearl.
I think that's what's so beautiful, that all of your life experiences, you're converting them into art.
It's therapy for
You're
me.
using the support of your technology to just find the best ways to get it to reach people. So I think this is really exemplary of what creativity strives to do, and the uniqueness of it, about how each person, many people say we struggle, or people say we don't have any creativity. I feel it's all there because creativity isn't out of ourselves. It is whatever events happen in our life and how we use our interest, our curiosity, our imagination to really convert it into something.
I'll give an example of that. And this is one of those examples where, or one situation where everyone has experienced this on the planet, which is a delayed flight or a bad experience at the airport. So interestingly, everyone has been through this, and there's nothing really that we can do about it. But maybe there was something that we could do about it. So I had a flight to Delhi last year, I think, and immediately waking up, I get a message saying the flight has been delayed. So सुबह सवेरे मिला संदेशा दिल्ली उड़ान में होगी देरी बदला द्वार चार बार और नगर की मारी पूरी फेरी. So when I was at the airport, they changed the gate 4 times and made us walk all the way across the airport back and forth 4 times. And it felt like we were just doing a city tour. The second half of this is निकले थे पुण्य नगरी से. So I started from Pune. But पर जा पहुँचे जयपुर. We almost boarded the wrong flight. And it was such a chaotic thing because after 4 gate changes, we almost got into a flight to Jaipur. निकले थे पुण्य नगरी से पर जा पहुँचे जयपुर. Almost. सफ़र किए या थी सफारी. Now here सफ़र can be the Hindi सफ़र journey or English सफ़र. सफ़र किए या थी सफारी नाद रंग अभी दिल्ली है दूर. And I recorded this and sent it out on YouTube, and a lot of people started to message me saying we are at the airport right now and we are in this situation where our flight has been delayed and we are frustrated, and your song has helped us let it go in a healthier way.
सुबह सवेरे मिला संदेशा सुबह सवेरे मिला संदेशा दिल्ली उड़ान में होगी देरी बदला द्वार 4 बार और नगर की मारी पूरी फेरी सुबह सवेरे मिला संदेशा निकले थे पुण्य नगरी से निकले थे पुण्य नगरी से पर जा पहुँचे जयपुर सफर किए या थी सफारी सफर किए या थी सफारी नाद रंग अभी दिल्ली है दूर सुबह सवेरे मिला संदेशा.
Yeah, yet again an example of what we've been talking throughout about how your compositions have the words, the lyrics entwined with your life circumstances. And I think this is really what the goal of music is. Very often we keep music as a separate thing, as if it's something holier than thou, it's something to be, kept separate. But I think its real value comes when you can integrate it with day-to-day life, living circumstances. It just gains so much more in terms of power, and it also helps you to go through it.
There are relationships that create a lot of stimulus for new compositions, new ideas, new emotions, in fact. And I'll give you 3 examples from the relationship that I've had. This is with my wife. And I'll give you 3 phases, the circle of life. There is the romance, then there is inevitably a fight, and then there is, of course, the apology after the fight.
Makeup, yeah.
And we always have to apologize. So, as men. So, romance composition, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तोरे नैना, अखियों में प्रीत भरे और सपनों में मेरे बस तू ही तू है. This is the time when I realized that my search for my soulmate had ended, that I had found the one. And so this composition came out.
निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना, अखियों में प्रीत भरे, अखियों में प्रीत भरे, और सपनों में मेरे बस तू ही तू है, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना। कब से तोरी बाट देखी, सपनों से मैंने एक बात सीखी, सपनों से मैंने एक बात सीखी, अब तो जीवन में मेरे बस तू ही तू है, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना, निंदिया चुरा ले गए तुझ नैना।
What a sweet composition.
Composition happened because of a fight due to social media. And again, this is one of those things that I think many of us must have experienced one way or the other. And this is when social media is so enticing that we spend all of our attention on the phone as opposed to our partner. And I've been guilty of this. My wife has been guilty of this. We've all been guilty of this at some point.
Yeah.
So this is more of a angry, sarcastic composition. But it's also social commentary to some extent. जा जा रे जा सजनवा, go get lost. जा जा रे जा सजनवा, फोन पे नजरे बिछाए जाए, हम पे न डालो नजरिया. Keep looking at your phone, don't you dare look at me. जा जा रे जा सजनवा. मुख किताब पढ़े दिन और रात. मुख फेस किताब बुक.
Facebook.
मुख किताब पढ़े दिन और रात, अंगुलियों से सबसे करत बात. You are spending day and night on social media, on Facebook. You are speaking with all of your little friends with your fingers. हमसे ना करो बतिया. Don't you dare talk to me. जा जा रे जा सजनवा. So this is in राग आहिर भैरव.
ये जा जा रे जा जा सजनवा, जा जा रे जा जा सजनवा, जा जा रे जा जा सजनवा, जा जा रे जा जा सजनवा. फोन पे नजरे बिछाए जाए, फोन पे नजरे बिछाए जाए, हम पे न डालो नजरिया. जा जा रे जा जा सजनवा, जा जा रे जा जा रे जा सजनवा. मुख किताब पढ़े दिन और रात, मुख किताब पढ़े दिन और रात, अंगुलियों से सबसे करत बात, अंगुलियों से सबसे करत बात, हमसे न करो बतिया. जा जा रे जा जा मणि धनि रब मगर जा जा रे जा 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 रे जा 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 रे जा सजन.
And then comes the inevitable apology. And the apology, typically what I realize is that I've said something that was taken in a different way.
Misunderstood.
The context was lost, or the context, whatever she had told me before, I'd forgotten, so the context got changed. And so I said something that basically hurt. पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल. भूल and भूल. Mistake and forgive. पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल. Please forgive my mistake. बोल हमारे दुख पहुंचाए. My words have hurt you. बोल तुम्हारे हम गए भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल। जो बोल थे हल्के बोल, चुभे कांटों जैसे हमरे बोल, अब तो माफ़ कर दो भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल। And this actually helped me because this whatever had happened, she had not talked to me for a few hours and I was getting restless, and I said, the way to diffuse this is probably musical, and it worked.
पिया भूल जाओ भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल। बोल हमारे दुख पहुँचाए, बोल हमारे दुख पहुँचाए, बोल तुम्हारे हम गए भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल। जो बोल थे हल्के बोल, जो बोल थे हल्के बोल, चुभे कांटों जैसे हमरे बोल, अब तो माफ कर दो भूल, पिया अब भूल जाओ भूल, भूल जाओ भूल, भूल जाओ भूल, भूलो ना।
Yes.
This was the relationship saga, and there are many compositions around different emotions that have come out through living life itself: anger, frustration, dealing with a difficult co-worker, addictions, digital detoxification. Then there are songs that are generally inspired by nature, so Pancha Mahabhut songs, so 5 elements. Kali Yug Bhajan, there is a song about our current times, interesting times that we live in, and people are behaving in interesting and entertaining ways, sometimes dangerous ways.
Dangerous.
And so that's another composition I have. And then there are compositions that are general events. So for example, Happy Birthday to You. We have songs in many languages, but there is no Hindustani classical song that I had access to or knew to say happy birthday to you. So I made one. आज शुभ दिन मंगल गाओ, मुहूर्त मनाओ, जन्म दिन मुबारक बादिया बरसाओ. Or if it's your anniversary, ब्याह दिन मुबारक बादिया बरसाओ. And then the wishes of this event, of this day, are inspired because I'm a geek from Star Wars and Star Trek. So the Ashirwad are Chira Ayu Samruddhi Pao. Chira Ayu Samruddhi Pao. Live long and prosper from Star Trek. Sabala Manobala Siddhi Pao. May the force be with you. Naad Ranga Shubhadina Mahurata Manao Mangalagao. So this was in Rag Veena Vadini, very interesting rag also, very rare rag. And this became my happy birthday to you song that people have forwarded to each other to wish them on their birthdays, which was very nice. I felt very, very happy about it.
Yeah.
आज शुभ दिन मुहूर्त मनाओ, मंगल गाओ रे। आज शुभ दिन मुहूर्त मनाओ, मंगल गाओ रे। आज शुभ दिन मुहूर्त मनाओ, मंगल गाओ रे। जन्मदिन मुबारक बादिया बरसाओ, मंगल गाओ रे। चिर आयु समृद्धि पाओ, चिर आयु समृद्धि पाओ, सबल मनोबल सिद्धि पाओ, सबल मनोबल सिद्धि पाओ। नाद रंग शुभ दिन मुहूर्त मनाओ, मंगल गाओ
sleep deprivation. So sleep deprivation is a theme in my life that has been around for a while because two careers and then I
And so many people deal with this.
yes, absolutely. So I was going to teach a student who was in California, and I had to get up at 7 to teach her. The problem was that I had slept at 4 in the morning, so I had barely 3 hours of sleep and very difficult to get up. And whatever reason, she didn't show up. So it was very difficult for me to get up. I got up, I was there in time, and she didn't show up. And my biggest regret was that I could have slept another hour or two. But then at this point, it's too late. Sleep won't return. प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई पर आंख आधी रात में लागी बड़े कष्ट नींद भगाई लॉट ऑफ एफर्ट आई थ्रू माई स्लीप अवे बड़े कष्ट नींद भगाई बड़े जल्दी में भूख दबाई आई स्किप ब्रेकफास्ट फॉर दिस बड़ा दुख की वो बिसराई नादरंग नींद लौट न आई प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई ऑफ कोर्स इन राग ललत विच इज अर्ली मॉर्निंग राग
Yeah.
प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई पर आँख आधी रात में लागी पर आँख आधी रात में लागी प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई बड़े कष्ट नींदन भगाई बड़े कष्ट नींदन भगाई बड़े जल्दी में भूख दबाई बड़े जल्दी में भूख दबाई पल पल की बड़ी लड़ाई बड़ा दुख की वो बिसराई नाद रंग नींद लौट आई प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी आई प्रभात मिलन की घड़ी
So these are just general events that
I would
happens.
have to say that because you haven't mentioned it, that lyrics is also part of your creativity. Like a strong bent on lyrics is together with all the other creativity. I think that lyrics is also another superpower.
I'd not considered it, but perhaps my grandmothers are amazing poets and writers, and perhaps maybe I got a small 1% of
The
that.
genes, yeah. So,
But these are sort of functional lyrics. I don't consider myself to be a poet. Sometimes it is poetry, sometimes it rhymes, but these are more expressions that have come out. And another interesting stimulus is something that I don't have an explanation for. And just call it like a higher plane of something. Because there have been times, many times, where there has been like a deep emotion bubbling away, and it transforms into a fully composed song. And I get this urge that something is about to happen, and then I have to run to record myself. And the entire song, fully composed, lyrics, melody, rhythm, comes out as one blob. And I have to learn it from my own recording. And this has happened multiple times. There are two things that I want to show you today. One is a song, Madhava Madhusudana. This is a song about Lord Vishnu. But the interesting thing is, the notation, the note names and the lyrics are the same. I didn't realize that this had happened till I started to learn the song from my own recording and realized, the swar names, at least in the first line, are matching, and I realized all of those lines are like that. So this was very interesting because it's in Rag Yaman, which has rules. Some transitions are not allowed, which means that if you change the melody, the lyrics have to change. Or if you change the lyrics, the melody has to change, and then it has to be, the lyrics have to be meaningful, the melody has to be correct in the rag and the tal. And so this engineering was not possible. If I have to engineer a composition like this, I probably can, but it will not sound as good. This turned out to be a really beautiful composition, if I may say so myself, because I don't know where it came from. And I'll sing it for you. It's in Tal Ek Tal, Rag Yaman.
Madhava Madhusudana Sundara Manohar Rupa Madhava Madhadha Madhasadhani Sadhare Mani Paripapa Madhava Madhusudana Madhava Madhusudana Madhava Madhusudana Sundara Manohara Rupa Madhava.
And the antara also.
Paramananda Sada Sukha Paramanidha Sada Sukha Paramananda Sada Sukha Mananam Dharo Das Mananam Dharo Das Mananam Dharo Das Nadarangani Sadhana Sumarare Madhava Madhava
Another time this happened was this day, 2 maybe 3 years ago. It was Mahashivratri, and I didn't know it was Mahashivratri. And I woke up at about 4 feeling very restless, and I realized something is about to happen. So I ran into my living room and pulled out the app and recorded myself.
नीलकंठ नंदीश्वर नीलकंठ नंदीश्वर गंगाधर गौरीवर गंगाधर गौरीवर हर 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 शिव शंकर भव भैरव भूतेश्वर भव भैरव भूतेश्वर भालचंद्र शीस गंग भालचंद्र शीस गंग मुंडमाल भस्मयंग मुंडमाल भस्मयंग त्रिशूलधर गले भुजंग तांडव कर डमरू संग त्रिशूलधर गले भुजंग तांडव कर डमरू संग गुरु चरणन नाद रंग गुरु चरणन नाद जंग गुरु चरणन नाद जंग भव भैरव भूतेश्वर भव भैरव भव भैरव भव भैरव भव भैरव भूतेश्वर.
And this was a composition on Lord Shiva. I had no idea it was Mahashivratri. So by the next morning, on that morning, I showed it to my wife and she said, this is Mahashivratri today. Perfect timing for this. But the interesting thing was that it was fully composed. There were words that I had never heard before in that context before, perhaps, that applied to Lord Shankar. And so it feels like there is somebody who's teaching me. Maybe it's my gurus, maybe it's whoever it is, that energies. But I've learned rags that I had never heard of before. There were compositions in rags that came out, fully composed, in tals that I had never thought of, in odd matras, 11, 13, 15, 7.5. And it was very uncanny, it was very unnerving, but also strangely relaxing. It's like,
These were like gifts.
yes,
Like they just came from supposedly nowhere.
it's like giving your car to somebody else to drive, but you're so confident that they are the best driver that you can actually have that car. But you have to make sure that the car is well maintained. So whatever I have to do to keep the instrument in tip top form, I'll do.
They call this that, when you're in the flow state, some amazing things happen through you that you later on wonder who did it. It wasn't me. And
In a lot of these cases, what was interesting is even the subconscious mind can be removed as a culprit, as a source of all of this. Because there are rags that I'd never heard before, never heard of before, tals, as I said. So where is this coming from? It cannot be subconscious because I was never exposed to it. So that is very, very strange and exciting.
have you had these experiences often in life?
I would say in the first 10, 15 compositions that I engineered them. They were inspired, but I was involved fully. Then there were sort of points in the middle where parts of it would be coming from somewhere which I was not quite sure, but maybe subconscious, maybe something else. The last 30, 40 compositions over the last, say, from 2013 onwards, I have all been like this. And now that I have a taste for how these compositions come out, the quality of those compositions, I cannot go back to now just simply engineering and composing, because these are so much more. The longevity of these compositions is so much higher that I feel like singing these for a very long time. I cannot say the same about the other ones. Some of them are situational. It needs a certain mood. It needs a certain environment, and then they'll fit. But not every time. These compositions I can sing at any point, and they're still as fresh and young as when I first met them.
Sandeep, on a parting note, do you think technology can ever truly replicate the depth of human musical expression?
The short answer is no. The long answer is, this is a very interesting philosophical and existential question, especially with all of the generative AI and where things are going and where things are projected to go and all of the fears around it. For me, the question is more personal, because where will artistic intelligence go? Where can it go? Where should it go? And deeply existential question. But artistic intelligence, while it can show signs of delighting you and surprising you and creating improvised creative content within a certain framework, it cannot have the human quality of suffering, of pain, of feeling, of the first person experience. And so while it is still trying to figure out what the emotion of the music is and accordingly adapt, it will never feel that emotion. It can analyze it, but it will never feel it. And this is the fatal flaw in all of the AI fears. I don't think there is anything to be afraid of, because AI will never be able to replace an artist. An artist is somebody who can suffer, who can feel, who can be happy and sad and feel all of the large range of emotions that humans are capable of feeling. And then from there, creating something new, either for therapy purposes in my case, or a social commentary, or whatever it is that they want to express. And that expression that drives or is driven from a feeling, technology will not be able to replicate ever. And if it does actually at some point do this, then it is no longer technology, then it is human. Because to err is human, but to feel is human, and to express is human. So I think a lot of people initially thought that, the AI music apps and will replace accompanists and artists, and no, not at all. The idea is actually the opposite. It is to enhance my day-to-day practice so well that I feel that I am on stage, and if I can practice in the production environment, in the test environment and the production environment, if they are identical or as close to it as possible, then my experience on stage, which is what I am striving after, will be elevated so far, that so high, that is the culmination of a musician's experience. That is where he wants to go. And I don't think that technology, it'll be a supplement, it'll be a tool. So rather than thinking of self-driving cars which aim to replace drivers, I would say the app or similar tools are like a flight simulator. So if you want to learn how to fly a plane and you don't have access to a multi-million dollar plane, then you practice on a realistic flight simulator first, so that when you do get your hands on a plane, then not only do you stay safe and survive, but you also enjoy the flight.
So beautifully explained and comforting that we don't really have all that much to fear from AI.
Not at all.
Thank you so much, Sandeep, for a truly memorable episode today, because it was not just the conversations, but the magic and beauty of your music that has shown through this podcast. And we are truly grateful to have you and your music feature today.
Thank you for having me on this episode on your podcast, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And I do hope that the conversation never stops. I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.